You're here because you want to cut through the noise, right? Get a handle on something important without uh, wading through a mountain of information.
Hmm.
That's the core of what we do. Take a single focused piece of content and extract the crucial insights for you.
Exactly. Think of it as us doing the intellectual spade work, kind of digging down to the essential knowledge and bringing it to the surface so you can grasp it quickly, effectively.
Get those aha moments.
Hopefully.
Today, we're venturing into some, well, pretty unusual territory.
Definitely a different one.
We're going to deep dive into a handbook titled How to Destroy a Man Now. Damn, man. A handbook came out back in 2018.
Right, and the author used a pseudonym, Angela Confidential, Sci-D.
The subtitle itself, a handbook, kind of signals a practical, almost instructional vibe, doesn't it?
It does. It suggests, a set of tools and techniques for, a pretty extreme goal.
And that goal, as the book lays it out, is giving women methods to gain power by strategically using certain societal dynamics and, frankly, readily available tools.
It's presented as a blueprint from the author's viewpoint on how to significantly undermine a man's life, but importantly, without physical violence.
Yeah, it's certainly a departure from our usual stuff. And it definitely gets into areas that are sensitive, potentially controversial.
No doubt about it.
Absolutely. Which is why our objective for this deep dive is crystal clear. We're here just to understand the central arguments and the specific methods detailed in this handbook.
We're going to dissect the content, lay out its propositions.
But yeah, zero intention of endorsing or validating these techniques. Our aim is purely analytical, just understanding a particular viewpoint and the actions it advocates.
Right. Just reporting on the content.
Okay, let's unpack
Okay.
this, starting with what the author calls the damn fundamentals, Chapter 1 stuff.
Right. Chapter 1 sets the foundation with 3 core concepts. The author calls them key friends: Allison Allegation, Mary Media, and Arthur Authority.
Key friends.
These are framed as the essential building blocks for achieving the handbook's goal.
Let's start with Allison Allegation. What's the basic idea there?
Allison Allegation, according to the handbook, is simply a claim, usually asserted without needing proof that someone did something illegal or wrong.
Okay.
The key point the book stresses is that the allegation itself doesn't require evidence. It's just a statement.
Just the act of saying something negative, whether it's true or not.
Exactly.
But the author does admit that on its own, an allegation like that has limited power, right?
Precisely. An unsubstantiated claim alone doesn't usually carry much weight or cause huge problems. That's where the other 2 friends step in.
Mary Media is next.
Mary Media, and the definition here is super broad.
It covers pretty much everything.
Yeah, almost any form of communication, from like basic gossip and word of mouth all the way to mass media, TV, internet, news outlets.
And social media, obviously. Big one today.
Huge. Twitter, Facebook, all of it. You see examples constantly, right? An allegation pops up, maybe no proof right away, but it just explodes online.
So how does Mary Media boost Allison Allegation? What's the connection?
The handbook describes it as synergy. The more people know about an allegation, the more perceived power it gets.
Ah, okay.
It leverages the idea that if everyone is talking about it, it must have some weight, even if there's no hard evidence presented initially.
And the book claims mainstream media gets involved mainly because of money.
That's the argument presented, yeah. The handbook says media outlets need eyeballs to attract advertisers, and nothing grabs attention like scandal. Allegations fit the bill perfectly.
This is where it gets really interesting. The book argues the media actively helps cement the allegation, even while saying it's just an allegation. How's that supposed to work?
Well, the author points to subtleties, like the tone used when saying allegation, how quickly they might gloss over the lack of proof part, and consistently using allegation or allege instead of, say, unsubstantiated claim. That language matters. Plus, the handbook suggests they frame accusers as brave, amplify public outrage the media might have helped create, and then use that outrage as a kind of evidence that the claims are serious.
It sounds like a feedback loop. Media reports reaction, it helps fuel.
Exactly. A self-reinforcing cycle of scandal, as the book puts it.
And the end result, according to the book, is this shift in how we see guilt.
Precisely. The handbook contrasts innocent until proven guilty with what it calls media-managed public opinion.
Meaning,
Meaning, if someone is serially accused in the media, they're often treated as guilty until they can somehow prove they're innocent, which is incredibly hard when the claims lack solid proof to begin with.
okay, that brings us to the third key friend, Arthur Authority. Who or what is that?
Author authority is basically any person or organization with the power to control, direct, or punish.
Like police, judges.
Yep, police, judges, bosses, HR departments, licensing boards, you name it. Anyone who can impose consequences.
And the book connects this idea of authority to what it calls patriarchy and chivalry.
Yeah, it frames Arthur authority as often having this daddy knight complex.
Daddy Knight.
Yeah, seeing itself as a protector, rescuer, especially of those seen as weak or victimized. This bias towards victims is key to how the handbook says authority is leveraged.
So the idea is authorities are more likely to step in if they see someone as a helpless victim.
That's the argument. The handbook even contrasts how authorities might react to a man claiming victimhood versus a woman, suggesting society makes it easier to see women as vulnerable and needing protection.
But don't authorities usually need, like, a credible claim that a rule or law was actually broken?
They do. But the handbook argues that the media buzz and public outcry, fueled by Mary media, can create that perception of credibility for the authorities.
Oh, yeah.
And it also notes that if authorities themselves face allegations, amplified by media, they might be more motivated to act decisively in other cases to show they're fulfilling that protector role.
Right, to protect your own image.
Could be part of it.
And what kind of punishments can Arthur authority dish out based on these allegations?
The handbook lists a whole range of damaging outcomes: losing your job, your income, professional licenses,
Social standing.
social standing, reputation, financial penalties, even jail time in some cases.
Wow.
And the book emphasizes the long-term stuff too: trouble finding work later, social isolation, even health problems from the stress.
It really paints a picture of potential devastation. And to back this up, it gives examples from 2017.
Yes, there's a section listing well-known men, the media allegations against them, and the actions authorities took that had major consequences.
Let's touch on a few just to illustrate. Harvey Weinstein, the producer. Sure. Accusations of rape, sexual harassment.
According to the book, fired from his own company, kicked out of the academy.
Roy Price, Amazon Studios exec. Sexual harassment claims.
The handbook notes he resigned after being suspended.
Chris Savino, Nickelodeon producer.
Fired, reportedly, after harassment accusations surfaced.
And the list goes on. Media figures, chefs, photographers, journalists. Lockhart Steele, John Besh, Terry Richardson, Leon
a
Wieseltier.
whole range of industries.
And the allegations vary: harassment, assault, but the outcome cited is often similar. Job loss, resignation, canceled deals, reputation destroyed.
It's presented as a clear pattern in the book.
What's striking is the sequence the book highlights. Allegations hit the media, often without immediate legal proof,
Right.
and then authorities, employers, organizations take action with serious personal and professional costs for the accused.
The handbook frames this as the direct result of Allison allegation, Mary media, and Arthur authority working together.
So those are the fundamentals. Then the book gets into specific methods, starting with using the internet, the damn online method.
Exactly. Chapter 2 gets practical about leveraging the web.
Okay, so the damn online method, very relevant today, obviously.
Absolutely. Chapter 2 details how to use the internet to amplify allegations and, well, potentially achieve that destruction the title talks about.
And the author presents it as pretty easy, powerful.
Surprisingly so, according to the handbook. Needs little more than an internet connection and a bit of time.
The key tools being complaint websites and search engines, specifically Google.
Yes, those are flagged as critical. Complaint sites offer a platform to post allegations publicly.
Right.
And Google's search engine is positioned as crucial for making sure those allegations pop up when someone searches the target's name.
The handbook gets really specific on how to write these online allegations for maximum impact. What are the key tips?
First, clearly ID the target. Full name, titles, credentials, company affiliations, even contact info and age if possible.
Why so specific?
Makes it easier for search engines to connect the allegation directly to the right person's online presence. Leaves no ambiguity.
It also mentions using pictures, even public ones.
Yeah, visuals are seen as adding credibility, or at least making the identification stronger for people scrolling through search results. And maybe for the algorithms, too.
What about the content of the allegations? What kind of claims does it say are most effective?
The handbook pushes for scandalous stuff, things that implied illegal or unethical behavior. Sexual or violent crimes against women or children are presented as having the biggest impact, generating the strongest reaction. Other vices may be less so, because there isn't always a clear, sympathetic victim in the same way.
And the framing matters too, right? Like presenting it as a public warning.
Exactly. Frame it as protecting others, especially vulnerable people. taps into that guardian instinct in authorities and the public.
It gives that example headline.
Yeah, something like, warning, all women beware of rapist Dr. Joe A. Smith, MD, ENT specialist. Very direct.
The book even talks about content links for SEO, search engine optimization. Why does that matter for rankings?
Right, so search engines like Google use algorithms to decide what shows up first. They look at keywords, content length, how often things are updated. The handbook suggests short posts get noticed quickly if they have the name and negative keywords. But longer posts with more detail, more scandal repeating keywords, those tend to rank higher and stay higher in search results, more visible.
Makes sense. Anonymity is obviously key for the person posting. What methods does the book suggest?
Standard stuff, really. Public Wi-Fi, VPNs to hide your IP address, generic usernames, throwaway emails made just for this.
Okay.
But it also warns against making allegations too crazy or unbelievable. Needs to seem plausible to stick.
Right. Maintain some credibility.
Exactly. Compare, he's a doctor who rapes patients with something totally outlandish. One might stick, the other gets dismissed.
And because search engines filter out duplicate content, the advice is to make multiple, slightly different versions.
Correct. Change the wording, sentence structure, maybe minor details, post them on different sites. Avoids the duplicate filter, maximizes reach.
It even gives examples for a fictional Dr. Joe Allen Smith.
Yeah, 3 variations to show how to do it.
And finally, keep posting periodically to keep it high in the search results.
Yes, keep it fresh for the algorithms. Maintain that high visibility long term. That's presented as key.
Okay, so where do these allegations typically get posted online? The book emphasizes complaint websites.
Yeah, they're presented as a primary tool.
What are these sites exactly? Why are they considered so crucial here?
Basically, online forums where people can post reviews or complaints about businesses, services, or sometimes individuals.
Okay.
They make it super easy and usually free to publish negative stuff online, visible to anyone. The book lists examples like Ripoff Report, Complaints Board, even sites focused on relationships like Report My Ex.
And their business model.
Right.
The book calls it legal extortion.
That's the term used, yeah. The model often involves publishing damaging content freely, then charging significant fees to potentially remove it.
Wow.
And they often hide behind free speech laws, like Section 230 of the Communications Decency Act in the U.S., which generally shields platforms from liability for user-posted content.
And posting on one site can spread it further.
Yeah, many have options to blast the complaint across a network of affiliated sites easily, so one post gets amplified instantly. Massively increases visibility.
Then search engines like Google come in and boost that visibility even more.
Absolutely. While search engines say they just index what's out there, the handbook argues they have huge power in what they prioritize.
And scandalous stuff from complaint sites often ranks really high.
Very high, according to the book, sometimes above the person's own professional website or LinkedIn. It specifically claims Google prioritizes this negative stuff more than, say, Bing.
So even if someone gets one post taken down, Google might just bump up another one. Sounds like whack-a-mole.
That's the implication. It's a constant battle. Removing one negative link doesn't fix the problem if others exist or new ones appear.
Social media like Twitter is also used to fan the flames.
Definitely. The handbook suggests posting links to the complaint site allegations on Twitter.
How does that help?
A simple tweet concerned about this, with the link broadcasts it to potentially thousands, drives traffic to the complaint site, which can boost its search ranking even further.
Okay. And finally, the online method also involves leveraging authorities, even online.
Yeah, using sites like LinkedIn or even Facebook to find out where the target works, who their boss is, professional contacts, sending anonymous messages or emails, containing the allegations, linking to the complaint sites, sending it directly to those authority figures, bosses, clients, maybe professional bodies like the AMA for a doctor.
The idea being, if they're directly alerted, they have to act.
It creates perceived pressure, an implied duty to investigate or take some action, according to the handbook.
And the book claims it's incredibly hard for the target to fight back against this online onslaught.
It outlines why. Media platform legal shields, anonymity of posters, the sheer cost and difficulty of winning defamation lawsuits.
Plus, the target might lose their job because of the allegations, cutting off resources to fight back.
Exactly. Job loss, social isolation. It creates a vicious cycle. And the legal system, the book argues, is often playing catch-up with these tactics.
It paints a really bleak picture for anyone targeted like this. Okay, let's move to Chapter 3. The damn at work method. This shifts focus from the internet to the workplace itself.
Yes, the damn at work method. The detail in Chapter 3 relies less on mass media, more on workplace allegations and leveraging internal authorities like HR.
Maybe more direct, more interpersonal than the online method.
Potentially, yeah. But the handbook suggests it can still be surprisingly damaging.
It starts with a story to illustrate Kathy Click and Eric Introvert. Can you give us the short version?
Sure. New employee Kathy, she's outgoing, integrates quickly. Doesn't like Eric, who's quieter, been there longer.
Okay.
Kathy starts subtly bad-mouthing Eric to her work friends, claiming he dismisses her ideas because she's a woman. Then she escalates it to HR, twists normal interactions, says she feels unsafe, hence his lack of engagement might be due to inappropriate staring or sexual interest.
Even without proof.
Right. Eric denies it, no real evidence, but HR makes him apologize anyway, puts it in his file, basically threatens his job if he doesn't comply.
And the outcome.
Eric's reputation tanks internally. He gets passed over for promotion. Kathy gets praised for speaking up, gets ahead. It highlights how subjective claims framed around protected status can be weaponized in workplace dynamics.
A pretty stark example. Now, when crafting workplace allegations, the book says the main consideration is different from the online method. What's the focus?
The core argument is money matters most to companies.
Right.
So workplace allegations should be framed to suggest financial risk for the company. Threat of lawsuits, bad PR leading to boycotts, lower morale impacting productivity, anything hitting the bottom line.
And HR and legal departments are primarily there to protect the company from those losses.
That's the perspective presented. Less about truth, more about risk mitigation for the organization.
This also explains the focus on victims from protected classes, women, minorities.
Exactly. Allegations involving protected classes carry a much higher legal risk and potential financial penalty for the company, so they're taken very seriously.
Same for lower power employees alleging mistreatment by someone higher up.
Yes. And the handbook specifically points out female subordinates as potentially very effective victims in workplace scenarios.
And like the online stuff, the allegations don't need to be huge scandals. Normal behavior can be twisted.
Yeah, the book gives examples. A hug becomes unwanted touching. Disagreeing becomes aggressive, creates an unsafe environment. Jokes become inappropriate, hostile. Even asking someone out or a consensual relationship could be spun as harassment later.
Wow. But again, it warns against totally unbelievable claims.
Right. Needs to be plausible within the work context. Character attacks are harder to defend than claims about work quality.
Why is that?
Easier to show proof of good work reports, projects, etc. Much harder to disprove a subjective claim about your character or intentions, especially once gossip starts.
Okay. Now, leveraging media in the workplace. It's not CNN, it's internal networks.
Right. Smear campaigns through the company grapevine. Presented as a very effective first step. Damage the reputation before going to HR.
And this relies on building a network of work friends.
Heavily. The handbook advises befriending influential people, the informal opinion leaders everyone listens to, and people with actual positional power. Plus, just having a broad network helps.
How do you build that network?
Company social events, mentoring programs, clubs, just being friendly and helpful, the reciprocity principle, build goodwill you might need later.
And once the network's there, how do you start the smear campaign?
Subtly.
Very subtly, usually. Not a formal meeting, but maybe a casual comment to an opinion leader friend. Like the example, dreading my meeting with Dave, I always catch him staring at my chest.
Just planting a seed.
Exactly. Let gossip and the internal rumor mill do the work of spreading it and making it seem credible through repetition.
And the book mentions you can still use the external online method alongside this.
Definitely. Posting about the alleged workplace issues online, naming the company, the person, the job title, as external pressure on internal authorities like HR.
Okay. Lastly, leveraging authority at work. It's about the dynamic between internal HR and the external legal system. That's a key point. The leverage comes from HR's fear of external consequences. Lawsuits, fines, bad press, all things HR wants to avoid.
So the threat of going external motivates internal action.
That's the idea. If an accuser hints they might sue or go to the EEOC, HR is much more likely to act quickly to contain the situation internally.
And how do companies typically handle these things, according to the book, before it goes public?
Discreetly, if possible. Coerce apologies, Maybe separating people, transferring the accused, documenting the incident.
Seems minor, but the book says it's damaging.
Very damaging internally. A documented incident, even without proof, hurts reputation, promotion chances. If it does go public, or looks like it will,
Then they act faster, cut ties.
often, yes. Firing the accused quickly can be seen as damage control, limiting liability, and negative PR. Again, the book argues it's driven by financial risk, not necessarily truth or justice.
And the advice is usually use internal HR first, unless it's like violent crime.
That's the general recommendation. Internal issues, especially involving protected groups, get HR's immediate attention. Going external too soon might trigger more coordination between external bodies and HR, which could backfire if the accuser hasn't built enough internal support yet.
Okay. The final chapter tries to explain why these methods supposedly work. The main reason given is pretty bold.
Yeah, the author basically argues women are winning in today's society, and they're doing it by turning patriarchal structures against men.
How so?
The core idea is that society still tends to see women as inherently powerless victims,
Right.
but at the same time, the handbook claims women are increasingly skilled at using communication and social networks, tools of power in today's world.
So benefiting from being seen as victims while also wielding power, that's the crux of it.
That's the argument presented. Society's ingrained view of women as damsels in distress, combined with a reluctance to see men as victims of women, creates a blind spot these methods exploit.
It also mentions the definition of violence being mostly physical.
Yes. And society struggling to see women as aggressors in non-physical ways, that helps these tactics, according to the book.
And the author calls this societal judo.
That's the term, yeah. Using the weight and momentum of patriarchy's own biases against itself, play into gender expectations strategically.
And the 2017 examples are used as proof of this winning.
They're presented that way. Evidence that these methods work to dethrone powerful men. The book also claims the word men itself is becoming increasingly negative in public discourse.
It also links this to broader shifts like the information economy and women's education levels.
Right. Argues society now values communication, social skills seen as traditional female strengths more than physical strength, cites women getting more degrees at all levels as another sign of shifting power.
And Mary Media gets brought up again as reinforcing this by shutting down men's rights arguments.
Yeah, the handbook argues there's a financial motive. Scandal about men sells papers, gets clicks, feeds complaint site business models, fuels legal cases.
And potentially benefits women through settlements or career advancement.
That's the cynical perspective offered, yes. Essentially, destroying men in this context is portrayed as profitable for various players.
It's certainly a bleak and, frankly, disturbing view of social dynamics and power.
It definitely presents a stark, unsettling picture. The handbook concludes by asserting women's power to use these non-physical means is stronger than ever, and our time is now, as the author puts it.
Well, this deep dive has certainly taken us through some, undeniably unsettling territory. We've explored the core arguments, the specific methods, and how to destroy a man now.
Sticking to our mission, which was just understanding the content itself.
Exactly. And it's crucial we repeat, analyzing this handbook doesn't mean we endorse its views or validate the methods it describes. Wow.
No, our aim was purely to dissect the arguments and techniques presented, to understand a perspective that, exists out there, however controversial.
Understanding these viewpoints, even disturbing ones, can still be valuable. Helps grasp certain social dynamics, how information or allegations can be weaponized today.
It really raises a big question for you listening. What are the wider implications of the dynamics described here? For trust, communication, the legal system.
Yeah. What happens when allegations can have such massive weight and consequence, sometimes regardless of factual proof or legal findings?
It forces us to think about the responsibility that comes with the power of information and public discourse, especially online.
What other questions does this raise for you? What related topics might be worth exploring down the line? Something to reflect on.